Okay, we're right to go. Okay, councillors, welcome to this, the July meeting of the Swanwell Rural City Councillors. Welcome also to members of the executive and the general public joining us via live stream or indeed the action replay. Swanwell Rural City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pays its respects to their elders, past and present. Councillor Benham, can we have the prayer, please?
We beseech you, Lord, that we may be granted wisdom, understanding and sincerity of purpose in the decisions we are called on to make for the welfare of the people of the rural city of Swanwell.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. Apologies, leaves of absence. We have one from Councillor Jeffrey. Any further apologies, Mr CEO?
No, that's all. All other councillors are present, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Directors and officers present.
Motion to accept the apology.
Yes. Can we have a motion to accept the apologies, please? Yes, Councillor King, seconded Councillor McPhee. All in favour? We are all in favour. Thank you. Make sure you raise your hands, councillors, in front of your face so I can see them. Thank you very much. That is carried. Directors and officers present, please, Mr CEO.
Yes, we have all directors present, Director Petkova, Wishke, Myers and Green, and we also have some staff from finance, Mr Snyder and Mr Free present, as well as exec supporting Sharon Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr CEO. The minutes of the previous meeting, can I have a mover that to the effect that the minutes of the scheduled meeting of council held on the 15th of June 2021 be a true and correct record, please? Moved Councillor Benham, seconded Councillor King. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest, please? There being none, thank you. Joint letters and reading of petitions.
No, Mr Mayor, there are no joint letters or petitions presented.
Thank you. Now we have a couple of questions for public questions time. Can I have someone that we suspend standing orders, please, as we go ahead with those? Moved Councillor McPhee, seconded Councillor Benham. All in favour? Carried. The first question is from a Moira Deaning, 17 Radcliffe Terrace, Taylors Hill, Victoria. Question is, under Victorian law, is it legal for local government councils to provide sex-based / targeted services and facilities separately to gender identity-based or targeted services and facilities? If not, why not? For example, can we legally put signs on a set of public toilets declaring that one is for biological males, including males with an intersex condition, one is for biological females, including biological females with an intersex condition, and one is for people with transgender identities of any biological sex? If not, why not? Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I thank Moira for the question. Look, I do note, Mr Mayor, that this or a similar question has been submitted to a number of councillors throughout Victoria for consideration. And I think that the question really asks if council is considering or sees it necessary to provide toilet facilities to people with intersex conditions or transgender identities. My understanding is that it is the law of Victoria that discrimination based on sex is prohibited. Council provides male and female toilet facilities, or unisex facilities and or family rooms and DDA compliant facilities, or more commonly a combination of these in any one location. Toilets are configured depending on their location and thus the predominant use of those facilities. And in recent times, council has included DDA compliant unisex cubicles in its toilets, which are there to cater for all in our community. And this practice will continue.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Second question is from Ms Alison Black from Robinvale in regard to installation of shade sails at Ritchie's IGA car park. At the council meeting of the 23rd of February 2021, council resolved to investigate the request for shade sails and then report the matter to a future council meeting. Can council advise the date on which the results of the investigation will be reported to council? Mr CEO.
Again, I thank Ms Black for her question. Council has received the proposal from Ritchie's IGA for investigation and implementing using solar panels as shade sails. For this request, from this request, Council has provided Richies with a number of options for their reference, and the matter is currently under active consideration. There has been regular correspondence backwards and forwards between Council and Richies and their designers. Once an agreement is reached with Richies IGA, the proposal will be brought to Council for consideration. And once Council has considered that matter, we will certainly be providing information in concert with the IGA, with Richies, back to the community. So what we're hoping to achieve here is an option that provides not only shade for those parking in the car park, but also something that generates electricity, which we expect will be utilised by the supermarket. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. There are no further questions. Now, before we resume standing orders, I would also I'd like to pay a tribute to the late Bill Maher, who was a past councillor and mayor with the Swan Hill Shire, and then later on the Rural City Council. And we Swan Hill Rural City Council extends their condolences to his wife and extended family. Bill was a councillor for the Shire of Swan Hill from 1990 until amalgamation in 1995. He held the position of Shire President in 1992. He was also a councillor for the Swan Hill Rural City Council from 1997 to 2003, and in fact was the first mayor of the amalgamated Shire and Rural City. Bill was a member of many committees and organisations throughout his tenure. With the Shire of Swan Hill, he represented Council on the Physical Services, Roads and Properties Committee. He was chair of the Sale Yards Committee. He was also on the Aerodrome Committee, the Joint City Shire Committee, the Mallee Valuation Group, the Municipal Public Health Plan, the Murray Mallee Training Company, the Swan Hill Weights and Measures Union, the Community Works and Services Committee, the CFA Regional Fire Prevention Committee as deputy there, Policy and Resources Committee, the Joint Municipal Community Committee of the Murray-Darling River Water Quality Group, Naya Salinity Management Plan Working Group, the Rural Water Commission Pipeline Planning Committee, the Municipal Sale Yards Association. He was deputy of the North West Municipalities Association. He was also a member of the Rural Water Corporation Northern Mallee Domestic and Stock Committee, the Swan Hill Water Board, the Murray Mallee Regional Organisation of Councils, and the Tintinda Flats Flood Mitigation Committee. The Swan Hill Rural City Council, he was on the Municipal Association of Victoria, the Western Murray Regional Development Organisation, the Swan Hill Aerodrome Advisory Committee. He was chair of the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee. He was also a member of the Naya Action Group Health Subcommittee, the Murray Crossings Group, and the Horticultural Expansion Working Group. As you can see, former Councillor Maher was involved very deeply in the issues with Swan Hill and surrounds. And as I said before, we pass on our sincere condolences to his wife and extended family. Can I have a mover that we resume standing orders, please? Yes, moved Councillor Benham, seconded Councillor McPhee. All in favour? Carried. Now, section B, reports.
Mr. Mayor, I should also inform the meeting that there will be no open forum as this is a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting, so we do not have, unfortunately, we do not have members of the gallery present. So, thank you.
Thank you for reminding me, Mr. CEO. Section B, reports. Item B, 21.54, Designated Areas Migration Agreement Program. Ms. Green, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just check that I can be heard well. Yep, good, thank you. This matter has been to Council in the past, and in the past Council has resolved not to pursue Adama, at least at this time. I guess things have changed over the last 18 months with less backpackers and less other sorts of overseas workers being able to work in Australia, that the need to perhaps review a decision on Adama has been brought forward by a meeting with I think it was some 10 horticulturalists a few weeks ago, where they stressed the need for council to reconsider a DAMA. So a DAMA is a designated area migration agreement, which basically essentially opens up the field of candidates and types of jobs that candidates from overseas may be able to pursue in Australia. For instance, the age limit is increased, so older candidates can apply. English proficiency is not as great, and the types of jobs that are open for visaed candidates is increased. Some of the work we have done in recent times to look further at DAMAs is to actually interview a number of the current DAMAs across Australia, of which there are 7, and that is detailed in the report. And certainly most of them have said it's been a worthwhile experience, although significant work to get up and running. All of them, bar the South Australian and Northern Territory ones, which are all of the territory and all of the state of South Australia, have been done regionally. Significant amount of work would need to be done. The horticulturalists that we spoke to are prepared to assist with that work. But the key issue that council must decide is whether to we need to do some feasibility work around trying to join with another existing DAMA. And the obvious one is the one currently being assessed by the federal government, which is the Shepparton, Moira and Campaspe councils. That might be an option if they get theirs approved. The second option is that we go it alone. We try. Everyone we've spoken to said it's too hard to go it alone and too expensive. You really need to do it regionally. And so, of course, the third option is a regional approach, which we could approach councils at both sides of the border, so into New South Wales as well as Victoria, to try and get a larger region and a larger demand for workers. Whilst the primary aim was originally for seasonal horticultural workers, it's certainly available to other areas, so our thriving manufacturing industry, perhaps even hospitality, which we know some of our hospitality businesses are struggling for chefs and other hospitality workers. So to enable this to be pursued, our recommendation is that we undertake a preliminary feasibility study to establish a DAMA in the region, which will provide some more information for council to make an informed decision on whether to proceed with the business case. And looking at those 3 options, going it alone, a regional approach, or joining with an existing DAMA. We have had some preliminary conversations with Shepparton Council, but not at a higher level, so not with the actual council, for instance. And certainly their application is currently with the relevant minister, so they're not willing to change anything until they either approved or not approved. So that is the recommendation for council to consider.
Thanks, Ms Green. Questions? Yes, Councillor Benham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Ms Green, unlike the ag visa, which has recently been approved by the Commonwealth and does not have a pathway to permanent residency, I know, but just for public record and anyone watching, does a DAMA offer a pathway to permanent residency for those that apply?
I'm not sure, to be honest, Councillor Benham. I don't think so. I think it's the issue we discussed at the meeting with the horticulturalists. It still doesn't do that. But I can certainly investigate and get back to you.
Thank you.
That will come out in the feasibility study, I imagine. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor McPhee. You still unmute? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Ms Green, just in relation to this, like the report stipulates that it's not really suitable for seasonal workers, and also that some of the DAMA programs have gone quiet since COVID was on. Looks like COVID's going to be with us for the next 12 to 18 months at least. Wouldn't it be better if positioned, we don't know what the workforce is going to be like in 12 to 18 months, putting on hold until we find out where we're at with COVID?
If I may respond, talking to the horticulturalists, certainly this won't be suitable for a number of their positions, but there are certainly some positions that they have, so farm managers and those sorts of positions where they are full-time positions. So they certainly saw that for a number of them and a number of positions for each of them, there would be full-time positions. And Councillor Maffei, this is going to take us beyond 12 months to potentially get up and running. So the feasibility will likely take a few months, at least 3 to 6 months, and then probably 12 months to develop the business case. So hopefully, I'm hoping that by then COVID will be living COVID normal by then, whatever that means. But you're right, they've certainly gone quiet because, of course, getting people from overseas, the only program really available at the moment is the Pacific Islander program. So that's where we are getting some seasonal workers at the moment.
Just a follow-on question in relation to that, like the report stipulates it's going to cost council $70,000 to $80,000 for a full-time employee to manage this program. Why does it have to be council applying for this? Why can't we be a stakeholder and assist and get one of these organisations, bigger companies, to do that role?
You're right, Councillor Maffei, it doesn't have to be us. So in Cairns, for instance, it's the Chamber of Commerce. Somewhere in central New South Wales, it's the Regional Development Association. So it doesn't have to be council.
Yes, Councillor Mackay, just unmute yourself, please. Yep.
Ms. Green, would the saving of doing it, the Dharma regionally, be that there could be one employee for several municipalities or councils? Is that?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's the benefit of doing it regionally. Each council would contribute to the cost of running the service. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor King.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Mr. Green. It was very detailed, very good. Just on the feasibility study, are you what you alluded to approximately 3 to 6 months? Is that something you see us doing like as a council, or do you see an opportunity for a collaborative approach with neighbouring councils just to do the feasibility study?
Well, we're suggesting that the three options be considered as part of the feasibility study, and that is the adjoining council going it alone or trying to join with another Dharma. So it would be us doing the work, but it would be a consultancy. As councillors are aware, we have had some significant resignations in the economic development team when we're probably not capable of doing it anyway. It's a fairly specialised field.
Yes, Councillor King.
Yeah, just follow up then, approximate cost, just ballpark.
20 grand, 20,000.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Mackay. Unmute, Councillor Mackay. Thanks.
Does Mildura have a Dharma?
No.
Ms. Green, with the feasibility study, will it extend to the people who've expressed interest in this, like our manufacturers, like our such as our welders and that we through our recent trips down to Carini Street and that, where they've expressed can't get a permanent workforce of welders, or in any one of those, Matt Maraka, who can't get enough people there. Like, it's probably our manufacturers where the permanent workforce, and recently our trip to aged care, that a similar sort of situation arises there. And will the feasibility study extend that far, or will we just, it's a broad brush?
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Look, my view is that the feasibility study is just whether it's worth us pursuing this and what model we would look at. All those jobs, my view, would be considered. So whether it's aged care workers, healthcare workers, hospitality, manufacturing, agriculture, all of them would be considered. I mean, why would we limit the field, as long as it meets the guidelines of the Dharma, obviously.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Benham.
Mr Mayor, if there are no more questions, I would like to put forward a motion, please.
Yep. And that motion
And that
is?
motion, it's slightly amended to the recommendations or the options that council undertakes a preliminary feasibility study to establish a Dharma in the region, which will provide more information for council to make an informed decision on whether to proceed with a business case or not. This exploration will include, but not be limited to, joining with another Dharma, creating a regional Dharma with nearby municipalities and states, or pursuing it for Swan Hill Rural City Council only.
Thank you. Can we get that? Do we need to get that up on the screen? Yes, here it comes. Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Councillor Young. Seconded, Councillor Young. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Benham?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we've been discussing this, as Ms Green said, we've been discussing this for a length of time, but over the past 18 months, our economy globally and local industry has changed and exposed a lot of holes, particularly when it comes to semi-skilled and skilled workers for our industries. The Commonwealth Ag Visa, it's recently been announced, as I mentioned, is a terrific thing to help fill some of those holes, but a Dharma allows our local economy to gain so much more than seasonal workers. The feasibility study will bring out whether it does actually include, and I believe it does, but I'm not an expert, allow for true benefit for our entire community, such as permanent residency, full-time employment for regional industries, and security in our regional workforces. The ease of process as well for accessing, for those who wish to access this opportunity to live and work in the region, as well as the employers. My own vision for a Dharma in this region is one that takes in not just multiple municipalities, but multiple states. And South Australia is already part of that. So it works for the Riverland, maybe up to Broken Hill, potentially taking in Campaspe and Shepparton as well, creating a true regional food and manufacturing region in Australia that's recognised by a Commonwealth agreement. A wise man once told me, bite off more than you can chew and chew like hell. So this is a great opportunity to see how much we can bite off.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. Councillor Young, do you like to contribute to the
Yes,
debate?
I'd just like to say we've had a lot of trips around to different industries, and that's included our industrial estate up in Robinvale, where the organisation up there that was looking for welders. We've had a lot of people that have not been able to come to the district, and there's a massive need out there for labour. I'm not too sure about the statement with the social implications that's aimed at attracting lower paid migrant workers to the region. I believe it's going to attract a whole lot of people in all different sorts of areas, not just lower paid migrants. So I think we need to meet the expectations of the industry. And it's really important that we do a feasibility study so that they do understand what we can do. I think there might be a bit of a misunderstanding that this is going to be a panacea for every type of issue that we've got to do with labour. So I think it's really important that we understand what this Dharma is going to do for us, so that industry are really well informed as well about what they can expect from it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Any further speakers for the motion? Please, Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Moore. Look, I'll support the motion, the fact it's a feasibility study. But council have got to be aware we can't be everything to everyone. I think hopefully this feasibility study will actually get private enterprise to realise they can put up their hand and run this process themselves. Yes, council has an obligation to advocate and help our economy grow, but it's the businesses themselves that need the employees. So I think they've got to put their hand up at some stage and take an active role in these programs.
Thanks, Councillor McPhee. Any further speakers for the motion? Any against the motion? There being no further speakers, Councillor Benham, do you wish to close the debate?
I don't think there's any need to, Mr Mayor. It's all positive from here.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. Therefore, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Now, item B21.55, dryland crops in the Mallee LGA report. Ms. Green, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, just very briefly, council will recall we had a irrigation crops in the Swan Hill LGA report last year. We have had the dryland part of the municipality studied as well to provide us with some data that's really useful for seeking grants and doing those sorts of things, and just having a true understanding of our economy. You will note, and as we've discussed at an assembly, the data is a bit older than it was for the irrigation report that was done, but nonetheless, it's probably still relatively accurate in terms of the comparison with irrigation. And whilst it clearly shows that dryland crops provide a significant input into the economy, it's significantly less than our irrigated crops, which probably is no surprise, really. The report is a useful report, one which we will make publicly available after council, should council endorse it, and certainly available to anyone who wants the information from it. And with a view that we will update both it and the irrigation crops report every 2 to 4 years as data is updated, so that we keep an up-to-date inventory on what our economy looks like. So the recommendation is that we ask council to receive and endorse the dryland crops in the Swan Hill LGA report.
Thank you, Ms Green. Any questions, councillors? No questions. Can I have a mover, please? Move Councillor McPhee, seconded Councillor King. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor McPhee?
Yes, Mr Mayor, just quickly, as Ms Green said, look, this is a great tool for us to advocate, and it just shows people how much gross value the dryland crops is in our region. We do supply, we do survive a lot on them, both the biggest towns of Swanwell, Robinvale, not so much Robinvale, horticulture more so, but dryland farming in the area, when they're going well, our towns are going well. All the small towns thrive when the farmers are doing well. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor King, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, thanks, Mr Mayor. Obviously endorsing Councillor McPhee, and thank you to the Economic Development Unit for the report. But just to stress to the public who might be watching this meeting either now or in the future, that really these reports and this data is really important for us to be able to advocate for funding. We're going to discuss another topic on roads later in the agenda, whether it's roads, community facilities, whatever it is. Accurate data with accurate dollars allows us to really go after funding with real numbers and with the truth behind it for our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor King. Any further speakers to the motion? There being none, any against the motion? No, there, rightio. We'll you wish to close the debate, Councillor McPhee?
All being said, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Right, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Carried. Yep. Right, item B 21.56, discontinuance and disposal of roads policy. Ms Petcover, please.
Ma'am. The policy was last reviewed by Council last September. With the change of the Local Government Act, it was prudent for us to review it a little bit earlier than the 12 months. And the amended policy, with no amendments apart from the addition to the new Local Government Act, is attached to this report for your endorsement. We've also attached the procedure so you can see how the policy gets implemented. The policy is the only document that is required to be endorsed by the Council.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? No questions. Therefore, can I have a mover, please?
Just move it as per the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Benham. Thank you. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor McPhee?
Nothing to be said, Mr Mayor. It's just updating it to the new Local Government Act. No change.
No changes. Thank you. No further speakers. Therefore, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item B 21.57, road network access for PBS A double vehicles. Ms Petcover, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report seeks Council's approval to gazette the identified rural roads within our municipality for performance-based standard approved double vehicle access. As you know, over the last few years, Council has proactively looked at ways of gazetting roads for different kind of vehicles to reduce the administrative burdens on transporters in obtaining permits and to shortcut the time that it takes for permits to be issued. So just over 83% of our network is currently gazetted for B doubles and 63% for high mass limit vehicles. This proposal seeks to gazette roads for A doubles, which is a level 3 in the heavy vehicle regulator hierarchy of roads. So if we gazette roads for that level, which is level 3, all roads that are level 2 and level 1, or all vehicles in those categories, sorry, will have access to those roads. So officers had a look at a few different options on which roads should be and could potentially be gazetted. I have to say that this is a desktop assessment. The field assessment is very lengthy and expensive. So this is our best assessment based on a desktop assessment, which includes the condition of the road, the pavement type, the usage of the road and the likes. So the two different options that are proposed in this report are either to gazette all the road segments that are currently suitable, assessed as suitable for A double vehicles, or the option 2 in the second attachment was to gazette some strategic corridors for A double vehicles. It is worth noting that we do have a bit of a gap in road continuance for the roads that are suitable across the municipality for A double access, and the gap is identified in table 2, which is just over 15 kilometers of roads that are not assessed as currently suitable for that kind of access. So the officers have put in a recommendation for gazetting of all suitable roads apart from the segments that are currently not suitable for A double access. To progress us further, we are currently undertaking a study with Department of Transport and Gunnewarra Shire Council under the umbrella of the Central Murray Region Transport Forum to assess strategic corridors within the whole region for A doubles and other high productivity vehicles. So that study will take us ideally 6 months, but more likely 9 months before we can actually present a suggested road network for our 2 municipalities as the first pilot for this part of the state. So that will help, and we'll keep on identifying other routes that are suitable and require additional funding, whether from council or from state or federal, and will allow us also to apply for any grant funding that becomes available, and it's targeted towards either productivity, first mile, last mile, safety. So there are plenty of other criteria that we'll be able to address in our funding applications. We are very aware that that is a huge funding gap between the condition of our roads and what's required and where the agriculture sector is heading towards in the future. Our roads were never designed for that, and we will not be able to bring them up to that standard and that requirement from our ratepayers without significant investment and help from outside. So we are going to achieve 2 things with gazetting roads. One is send a clear signal that that is important to our municipality. And the second one, through the study, is demonstrate the huge gap that exists between what is required and the status of our roads.
Thank you, Ms. Petcover. Any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Benham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Petcover, is there any reason that we should be aware of why we wouldn't gazette all of the roads that are suitable now? Is there any reason why we shouldn't, or costs associated?
All the roads that are suitable, we can gazette now. There is no reason, apart from the fact that there are gaps in that road network, and we'll need to be very clear on the gaps. Obviously, that will become part of the map, and should vehicles need to bridge that gap, they'll need to apply for a permit, which will get assessed on a case-by-case basis. I think it's worth just mentioning, Councillor Benham, that some of our assessments when we received an application are field-based, which requires staff officers to go and actually travel the road and assess it for everything from side distances through sweeping paths and the likes when they receive an application. And this is why we are allowed 28 days to assess an application.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor McKay, unmute. Yep.
These roads that are we're considering for gazetting, are they already suitable for having B doubles and heavy mass vehicles on them?
Yes, so if the 4 categories of roads under the heavy vehicle regulators are 1, 2, 3, 4. These the A doubles vehicles fall within the category number 3. So any vehicle that is in a category 2 or 1 will be able to travel on those roads, and a B double clearly falls within one of the higher categories. So absolutely, yes.
And at the moment, do those vehicles not need a permit?
So for B doubles, on the gazetted B double routes, they don't need permits. If they need to access any other roads that are not gazetted for B doubles, they will need a permit.
Okay.
Councillor Young.
Ms. Petkova, if you identified, say, 2 roads that were quite urgently needed to be gazetted, is it possible to just apply for a small number of roads, or do you need to do like a big proposal?
No, we can certainly gazette each road individually. Just like if a road deteriorates and is no longer suitable and we can't afford to fix it and to bring it back to the standard required, we are required to amend the gazetting of that road and take it off the list of gazetted roads.
So it's not a really big process just to do a small number?
It makes no difference. It's the same time. So it takes the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator approximately a month to gazette once council has given an approval. So if we do any changes, as long as we can bring it to the attention of council and council can make a determination, we can gazette and make changes to the gazettal at any point in time.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I've got a few questions. First one, in relation to the 13 applications you received, Ms. Petkova, what were they in relation to? What size A doubles? Were they higher mass limits? And where were they?
So those ones were on top of the approximately 200 applications that we receive in a year. So they were, I think that was one of the errors in our reporting. It meant to say that they are on top of our standard applications that we've received. So it was really to highlight that we're starting to receive more application than we used to in previous years. And yes, they were all for A doubles. All of them were from Victorian transport companies, and only a few were from local operators. I can't tell you the details of each one, but they will all fall in the category of a performance based standard A double vehicle.
All right, okay, Ms. Petkova. And what if we're going down this line, what size A doubles are we talking about? Are we talking about a triaxle dolly A double? Are we talking about a tandem dolly A double? And what length of A double are we talking? Up to, what is it, 36.5 metres or 30 metres?
So anything that's in excess of 36 meters and a gross combination in excess of 68.5 tons, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, A doubles can carry actually 68.5 to 85.5. So that's what I'm saying about,
Yep.
are they high mass limits? And 36.5 metres is the longest A double you can have.
Sorry,
So what are
26.
we opening them up to?
Yeah, 26. Sorry, not 36.
36. It's 36. It's 36.
So you're opening them up to a 26 metre A double, which is 36 metres as or 26 metres as a B double length. Why
Or
do we
above.
need, or above? Okay. What Vic roads in our municipality, in that map on schedule or table 1 or whatever you had in the report, I take it the purple roads are Vic roads.
Yes.
So there your Sea Lake, Swanwell, Sea Lake, or Donald Swanwell, your Robinvale, Sea Lake, I believe.
Yep, in the Mallee Highway and the Murray Valley Highway.
Which of those Vic roads are already gazetted now for A doubles?
I can't answer that question. And the reason why I can't answer
Well,
that
I'll
question.
answer it for you, Ms. Petkova. The only Vic roads we have that are gazetted A doubles now are the Murray Valley Highway, the Calder Highway, and the Mallee Highway. But anyway, all right. So I asked that question because hoping you'd answer it, so I didn't have to answer it. But anyway, all right. Yeah, that'll do for now. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Ms. Petkova, the work you're doing with the Central Murray Regional Transport Forum, will that end up with a prioritisation of roads and sort of projects that with like a missing links sort of program? Is that the aim of this setup?
That certainly is the aim. It's also going to identify any barriers for those networks to be created. So that could be bridges, culverts, native vegetation. It could be a lot of reasons why certain networks can't be connected. So it will identify those ones too.
Okay, thank you. Yep, yes, Councillor McPhee.
There's just another question. In relation to what you're proposing, the roads in that attachment 1, all roads that are green, you have the one road that runs into Warraneen South from Vinifera Way, stops in the town, then goes out to Warraneen South Road into Swan Hill as applicable. So you've only got that very small part through town that's not suitable. And in the report you state that it's evidence-based that truck drivers will breach the laws in cases like this. So what's going to stop A doubles running through Warraneen South around that tight bend just on the west of town, which you struggle to get 2 B doubles around, let alone A doubles?
Apart from law enforcement, there is nothing that can actually stop truck drivers to get on any road that they see fit. Whether they're legally entitled to it or not, it's apart from enforcement, there is nothing else that can stop them.
And just another question in relation to the permits. It's a National Heavy Vehicle Regulator that gives the permits.
Yes.
Are they able to extend the permit without coming back to us? I believe that is the case, that they can renew their permit before it expires. And the follow-on question as part of that too, how long can a permit go for?
So permit can go for up to 3 years, and whether they can or they can't, they seem to refer them always back to us. So we see permits that are for renewal on a regular basis. I think what the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator is doing is making sure that we can guarantee that those roads are still suitable and fit for purpose, rather than them making a decision and ultimately having the responsibility to warrant that that is true and correct.
Yeah, just that's permits for renewal, which means the permit has expired, but the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator can actually extend the permit before it expires without having come back to the local road authority.
That might be correct. The maximum length of a permit would be a 3-year from what we've seen.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor McKay.
This may be a question for Ms. Petcover or Ms. Councillor McPhee, with Warraneen South, is it the sharp corner that makes the road unsuitable, or some other quality?
Do you
Oh.
mean the 60 kilometre, the bend at the end?
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's you know that it's a really difficult bend even with a normal vehicle, let alone a big truck like that. But it's not going to be just that.
Just to follow on answer from that, Councillor McKay, I had a local who drives a B double. They had trouble getting around there with a B double going either way. You won't get around there with it, get an A double either way.
Thank you, councillors. Any further questions? Can I have a, yes, Councillor Benham.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no more questions, I'd like to move a motion, please.
Yeah, okay.
Just a slight amendment from the recommendation after the semicolon. If we approve the gazetting of all roads as identified in this report as suitable for A double access on attachment 1, and actively seek funding opportunities to continue gazetting and maintaining more roads for A double and road train access.
Can we get that up on the screen? Okay, there's the motion, councillors. Give us a couple of seconds to read that.
Yep.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Mayor, before you go?
Go ahead, Councillor McPhee.
Yes, Ms. Petcover, you mentioned that if a road becomes damaged, it can be reverted back out of an A class or A double classification. And
Yes.
if we can't maintain it, what extra cost to the municipality is to maintain all our roads at an A double level?
Look, the more the roads are used and the heavier the vehicles, probably the more maintenance one would assume. But those segments are already suitable the way they are. So yes, we've said in the report that the maintenance costs will go up. Certainly the cost to rebuild roads when they become damaged will come up. But this shouldn't just be a cost to our municipality. This is strategic routes, and the reason why we partnered with Department of Transport was to identify them as such and provide appropriate funding from the state and the federal government to maintain those roads, because the vehicles will get bigger and heavier, and that is just natural with the change in agriculture.
Thank you. That's satisfactory, Councillor McPhee? Yep, good. I have a motion on the table there. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Benham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just really quickly, I mentioned earlier about, and we talk about all the time, how we are a food bowl of Australia. However, we really quickly have become a manufacturing hub, and we've just seen a report on our dry land farming as well. Industry in our municipality and our region is huge, and it's getting bigger every year, and so are our trucks, and so is the workload that is put on growers, producers, logistics companies, and internally our staff. I truly believe that if we can immediately gazette the roads that we can, including the ones that lead in and out of farm gates, it'll cut through an enormous amount of red tape, which benefits our organisation, growers and the transport companies as we can. We're not going to get the rail. I mean, rail would be a great solution for the amount of freight that we move from our region right around Australia. That doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. So hopefully this will be a step in the right direction. And if we can move in the direction and actively seek funding to maintain those roads to a standard for our transport and get in front of the truck rather than behind it, that will put us in a pretty good position for the future, which hopefully will be looking really bright for our region.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. Councillor Young.
I'd just like to say this has been discussed in great detail on many occasions at the Agribusiness Committee, and their discussions were around the fact that it is definitely needed a lot out in the Mallee areas with the grain trucks operating out there, So I just really support this and think it needs to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers for the motion? Any against the motion? Yes, Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, look, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I take on board what the two other councillors said about in relation to trucks. Trucks are getting bigger, yes. In my business, I look at trucks every day, all day. And they are getting bigger and bigger. But the situation we're doing here, councillors, is we are creating an issue whereby we're giving them permits for our roads, yet the Vic roads, other than the Murray Valley Highway, Valley Highway and Calder Highway, are not A-double gazetted. So they're going to have to get permits off Vic roads for a start, as soon as they get off our roads. Or they'll just, once again, we're encouraging them to breach the law to get to those major highways. Another thing I don't believe that the councillors are well aware of, which I didn't raise, is that every time an A-double crosses a railway crossing, they need to get another permit. That is currently the case now when they're travelling on these major highways, because Vic roads cannot even give them those permits. They've got to go to another authority to get that permit. The people that operate these trucks are fully aware of what happens and what permits they need. They can plan well in advance and get a permit, as Ms Petkova said, for up to 3 years if they need one for specific roads. We start putting them across all our roads. It's not a case of applying funding to the bits that are missing, the contiguous bits that are missing, but the detrimental effect on the roads that we already have that are suitable at the moment for A-doubles, but continual wear and tear on them will deteriorate, because an A-double naturally by its configuration with a dolly and a turntable has 2 articulation points. So the rear trailer will sway more than a normal B-double trailer. And we're getting more and more caravans on our road. We want to encourage tourists to our area. All of a sudden, you're starting to put people's lives at risk because you're getting all these bigger vehicles, longer vehicles, both A-double trucks and caravans coming into our area, dealing with this in both areas. So it's a road safety issue as well. And like I said before with the question, permits can be up for 3 years. So it's not a case of, oh, I need a permit now. People know when their crops are coming off the ground, know when they need these big vehicles to travel. They can plan ahead and get these permits in plenty of time, and they can be for 3 years. So I don't see the over expense to council as great, because like I said before, if you actually looked at the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator site, they can actually renew their permit before it expires through them. They do not have to come to council. So council could say, you can just renew it already because they have a current permit. And Vic roads themselves have not got all their roads throughout the state, let alone our area, that are gazetted A-double. Why, if it's so safe and so good, why doesn't Vic roads gazette all their roads A-double? Because there's an issue with them. You're talking up to 10 metres longer than the trucks are now. I take on board that Councillor Young said about the farmers out in the Mallee needing, and the horticultural industry are going to bigger trucks, and they say that they need this access. Yet, councillors, don't forget, just not that long ago, we asked for a gypsum pit to be opened. Who were the people that complained about the extra trucks on the road and about the safety of their children and their wives going to school? It was the farmers. They didn't want extra trucks of ours on the road, yet they're asking us to put bigger, longer trucks of theirs on the road. Where's the equality there and equity there? All I say, councillors, we need to be strategic how we're doing it. The Central Murray Tourism Transport Forum, which we are part of, are doing a study. We've been given $50,000. It says that in the report, to look at strategic avenues for these roads to be done. I think we should be actually going down what attachment 2 says and just having some east-west across our municipality, those 4 roads across our municipality, which allows them to get to the Vic roads that are A-double classified, not the ones that aren't A-double classified. That gives them a bit more, shows us a bit more concerning and a bit more just considerate of how they should be travelling and not where they should be travelling anywhere on our road through the municipality. I think it is a unsafe practice to let A-doubles travel anywhere on any road in our municipality. We've got to think of more than just, like our report said before, with the dryland farmers. Yes, agriculture plays a big part in our industry, but also there's a lot of lives in our municipality that could be saved if we don't if we don't consider road safety aspects of this report as well. Thank you, Mr Mayor. That's why I speak against it.
Thanks, Councillor McPhee. Any further speakers against the motion? Yes, Councillor McKay.
Thank you. I am in favour of gazetting more roads than just the east-west roads, but I think we could do some more investigation with the local transport drivers and community to ascertain which are the least dangerous of the roads to gazette. And I don't believe myself as a councillor, has done quite enough work, and possibly what I would suggest is that we gazette the east-west roads that are suggested, and over the course of the next month, investigate a little more with the community, with transport drivers, to ascertain some strategic routes if we can identify them north-south, and do that as quickly as possible. But there is the potential that gazetting all of them does bring up some safety issues. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers against the motion? Any further speakers for the motion? Okay, Councillor Benham, do you wish to close the debate?
Thank you. Really quickly, Mr Mayor. Gazetting these roads, like I said, I've spent a lot of time over the last 12 months speaking to endless amounts of logistics bosses, truck drivers, people that are in charge of administration within those companies and within local growers as well, people that don't have dedicated resources to apply for these permits. And yes, there are a lot of other stakeholders when it comes to issuing permits. We can't control all of those, but what we can control now is cutting the red tape within our organisation and making it a little bit easier. If permits get held up within our organisation, then it gets held up right down the line. There's already enough issue with finding trucks are getting bigger because the pool of truck drivers also is getting much, much smaller. There are a lot of companies out there that are struggling to find, they have the youngest truck drivers entering their 60s. So it's less drivers, more trailers. A lot of companies are even going up to quads now. So we are going to find ourselves again behind the 8 ball really, really quickly. So permits to get access from the farm gate to those Vic roads or national highways that allow us to get our produce to port is vitally important to keep things going. I had a few other notes here. Like I said, I've spoken to lots and lots of people involved in the industry within logistics companies, and they are all in favour of this just to make the process a little bit easier. We can't control, like I said, we can't control what the other organisations do. We can control what happens within ours, and that's what we should be worried about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. So there are no further speakers and Councillor Benham has closed the debate. We'll now go to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Next item on the agenda, item B, 21.58, long-term financial plan. Mr. Lesky, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of today's report is to ask the Council to adopt the 10-year financial plan as we present today. As we've discussed in previous assemblies, the 10-year financial plan is now a requirement under the Local Government Act for 2020. We need to tick off a number of the areas. Having a longer-term financial view shows the Council will be able to access a financial position to make any necessary adjustments in the future. It provides that we have sustainable finances in the longer term so we can manage developments and unexpected financial shocks without having to introduce substantial or disruptive revenue and expenditure adjustments. It allows us to propose over the short, medium and long term our ability to be able to upgrade and facilitate investment in the infrastructure and assets that the Council is required to maintain and developments for the community, and allows us to adjust over time to the community needs. The basis for our 10-year financial plan was the recently adopted financial year 21-22 Council budget, with a number of key assumptions going forward. I'll hand over now to Warren Snyder, our Finance Manager, who can go through a few more of the detailed points for you.
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, Joel's probably stolen most of my thunder on this one. But look, the plan is something that councillors been undertaking for the last 8-9 years, and now become a requirement of the Local Government Act to adopt. So we've been on the front foot with this for a long time. This plan includes a more thorough examination of our human resources and a summary of our reserves that we haven't had in the past. But the plan by nature is assumed a number of assumptions, and they are detailed in the various sections in the plan. So there's different assumptions made for revenue as opposed to expenses. Like Director of Corporate Services said, this plan has been developed from the 2022 budget that we've just recently adopted, and it's also coming from the 10-year major projects plan that we have adopted on previous occasions. So really it's a culmination of those reports to combine into this report. It also gives us the base really to start preparing for any future budgets, particularly the 2023 annual budget. So the plan also allows for known and likely changes in our revenue and expenditure. And some of those are our waste management contracts. We don't know exactly what those increases will be, but we have factored in increases in that area. We also factored in changes to the aged care reforms, an increase in revenue from the Pioneer Settlement and the Livestock Exchange. And we hope to get a higher return on our investments, which have plummeted in recent years, in the last 18 months because of COVID and other things. Really, for the life of the plan, we're about $1 million in the 10th year of the plan less in revenue from interest on investments. So that's really come to kick us pretty hard. But other things we've factored in there is changes in insurance costs. As you know, we've been through fires, floods, and anything else in between, and our insurance excesses, our insurance have increased by about $280,000 this coming year alone, and we've factored other incremental increases going forward for that as well. We've factored in obviously EBA increases for staff, and the first 3 years we've based it on about 1.5%, out to 2% in the longer term of the plan. The plan's also been prepared in relation within the rate cap that might be imposed or will be imposed by the minister, and we've assumed that that's consistent with CPI at this stage. So there's a number of objectives and recommendations to ensure that we remain viable, and that's to ensure that or enable us to respond to any unexpected financial shocks, such as unfunded superannuation liability calls and the like. What else have we got in here? There's obviously the industry as a whole is facing a number of issues. They're all included in the plan as well. But our strategies to identify some of these challenges are to identify alternate revenue streams to take the pressure off our rates. And we've identified that coming from solar farms, continued return on investment from the Tower Hill development, additional rates from new developments and expansions. So that leads into the discussion we just had on roads, and developing a business focus for the Pioneer Settlement and determining an underlying level of subsidy in that enterprise as well. And really to pursue government grants to fund infrastructure and services that we've already identified in our 10-year major projects plan. On top of that, there's a rationalisation of property holdings and to remain on a path of no borrowings going into the future. So really, councillors, we've undertaken a lot of work together to build this plan. Management believe the plan is fit for purpose as a high-level financial document. So councillors really offers the seeking recommendation to adopt the financial plan that'll satisfy the requirements of the Act and to provide a long-term financial instrument for various stakeholders to review and for us to use internally. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Warren. Thanks, Joel. Yeah, any questions of either Joel or Warren? Yes, Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Warren, in the report, you mentioned that 21-22 is the base year. Does that, obviously the plan gets reviewed every year to keep it constant. Does that base year get reviewed as well?
Yes, it does, Councillor. obviously things changed quite a bit. If we looked at our plans from 9 years ago, the first time we did, completely different than what we've got in front of us today. The assumptions that we make are based on the information we got at the time. So a lot of that information comes from the media, from our bankers, from the industry, saying what we can plan. Like 10 years ago, we didn't think there's going to be a rate cap environment that we'd be working in either. So things do change, but certainly the base year changes. This plan gets renewed every year. So the base year will be the adopted budget, which is basically in June each year. So we could have this particular plan, the long-term financial plan, or 2 years at the same time, but we thought it's better to keep the two separate, just in case there are any changes that come out of the adopted annual budget that we can incorporate into this plan as well.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Snyder. Just one more question, Mr. Mayor. In relation to the assumptions you're talking about on the pages and that, under rates and charges, you may have covered it off a little bit there. The waste I see in 22, 23, 23, 24 is actually going up by 10% each year, where right throughout the plan, it's usually about 2 to 3% rises everywhere, round figures. Why only 10% for those 2 years and then back to 2.5%?
Well, it's basically an accumulative effects in there. So we're expecting increases in our contract for waste disposal and collection and recycling. We're also we're factoring in additional costs for FOGO and that type of thing as well, but I don't think we've gone really quite hard enough on the FOGO side of things. But certainly we're aware that there's additional increase in costs for waste management. Case in point is the 62% increase in EPA levies in the current financial year. So we just believe we'll factor in something a bit higher in the rates in the garbage charge in that area for these unforeseen circumstances, really.
Thanks. Any further questions, councillors? There being none, can I have a mover, please?
I'll move the motion, Mr. Mayor, as per the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. I have a seconder, please. Councillor McKay, seconded Councillor McKay. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor McPhee?
Yeah, firstly, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank our finance department, Warren and his team, for the work they do in relation to this. I think Mr. Letsky's walked into a very healthy financial environment with our council, thanks to our previous director, Mr. Lenton. I think he definitely deserves a mention. I'm all for recognising people in the past and in the future. It's not currently the ones that all do the work in relation to this, but a lot of work's been done previously by Mr. Lenton. He needs to be thanked, and which is carried on by Mr. Snyder and his team. So it is a good plan, and we are in a very good financial position, and we certainly hope to stay that way. As a councillor, all the terms I've been on, we have always tried to keep the budget increases or the rate increases as low as possible, even pre-rate capping, and even since rate capping, we keep it well under that. So I think the finance team do a wonderful job, and thanks to all the executive for their effort in relation to our finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor McKay, do you wish to speak to the motion? Yes, unmute yourself, Councillor McKay.
I'd also like to add my words of gratitude. Thank you, Warren Snyder and the team very much for all the hard work and the great report.
Thank you, councillors.
Any further speakers for the motion? Any against the motion? There being none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously.
Beautiful.
Item B 21.59, Council Plan, Progress Report for the fourth quarter of 2020/21. Mr. Leskey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is our quarterly update for the period of 1st of April to 30th of June 2021 against the council plan for the years 2017 to 2021. As you can see, quite a number of the items are now currently underway or in planning, where some of the key objectives that were marked as completed during the quarter were the ability to encourage and attract new business to our region by applying for funding through Regional Development Victoria, investigate and identify potential export opportunities and facilitate connections, to analyse the region's products and identify where we have competitive advantages that may provide opportunities for growth, and to investigate opportunities to improve stormwater runoff from the townships into the river. One of these being the Pritchard Street drainage upgrade works were completed in May. Council has made some good progress on a number of the following issues to be able to identify and investigate suitable land parcels for new businesses, working with companies to establish a demolition service in Swan Hill and individual for new businesses in Manangatang, increasing the activity and appropriate housing to support the growth of the industry and agricultural sector. Obviously, we're currently in the middle of finishing the tender and hopefully starting works on 8 houses to be done in Robinvale, with works underway shortly to get the groundwork. The residential land strategy is underway. The draft strategy is due to be delivered to council in July 2021. Strategic position of council's ongoing role regarding community-based aged care reforms. Councillors were briefed on the Royal Commission outcomes and likely next steps in June. The complete and implementation of the Recreation Reserve Master Plan with multiple projects completed and underway. Levy construction work has commenced in Robinvale and is on schedule to be completed in the first quarter of the new financial year. Identify opportunities to rationalise council's assets. The road network assessment has been conducted and revised work has gone out for public consultation as part of the roads management plan process. And the road management plan and register of public roads were approved in June 2021. I'm happy to take the rest of the report as read. It is quite lengthy, but take any questions that councillors may have.
Okay, councillors, questions? Yes, Councillor McPhee.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Lesky, I probably nearly know the answer to this one myself anyway, but the only action that we're not going to complete for our current plan is to develop a positive ageing plan. Is that obviously due to it's all still up in the air with the federal government funding and the whole situation in relation to aged care?
Currently, I believe, just let me double check, I believe we no longer have the requirement to complete that because of the aged care reforms and it being incorporated into our future plans. Bruce can probably add more information on that one.
Thanks, through you, Mayor, to Councillor McPhee. That's correct. What Mr. Lesky said, that was a requirement of the former state government funding for aged care. It's now not mandatory, but ideally we would like to have one, but we would like to see which way the aged care reforms go before we go to the work of developing a new positive ageing plan.
Thank you. Yeah, good. Any further questions, councillors? Now, Joel, will this be the, Mr. Lesky, will this be the last report for this particular council plan or will we be one more?
No, this goes through to 30 June. So what we're doing is we're in the process, as you know, of going out for community engagement on a new community plan, and a large number of these KPIs will also be reported in our annual reports. Okay,
thank you. Any further questions, councillors? There being none, can I have a mover, please?
I'll move the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. A seconder, please. Seconded, Councillor Young. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor McPhee?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, this is the previous council plan. It's been 4 years and it's pleasing to see that all the actions have been, or not completed, but at least started, and a lot of them are ongoing. But as just mentioned there at the end of the discussion, it's an opportunity now for this municipality, people of the municipality, to get involved in our new plan. Under the new Local Government Act, council in the past have done a plan and we've put it out for consideration. This time we're actually going out to the community for consideration first and then coming back to us to implement the plan. So I'd encourage all the community to be aware of the upcoming sessions that are in, 2 are in Swanwell, 1 in Robinvale, 1 in Lake Boga and 1 in Piangle. By all means, get along. If you can't get along, make a submission or make a comment on the website. It's your opportunity to be involved in a council plan for the next 4 years. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Councillor Young, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick statement about, this is a personal view, but I would think that council will have the same view, how important it is to complete the already identified projects and the ones that are actionable, so that we're not going into a whole lot of new areas as well and then finding out that we haven't completed the ones we already had there, but then we're going into lots of other areas. So I think we need to prioritise what we've got, but also include other views of the community that are achievable.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Any further speakers for the motion? Any against the motion? There being none, Councillor McPhee, would you like to close the debate?
That's all been said, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. We'll go to a vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Item B 21.60 S5 Instrument of Delegation to the Chief Executive Officer. Mr McClendon, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a report that councillors have seen on a relatively regular basis now. It's brought to council generally on a 6-month.
You need to unmute himself, Mr Mayor. He's speaking through your microphone.
Yep,
Yeah,
that was
okay.
the. So I'll have to mute.
No, don't you mute.
Yep,
Okay.
okay. Yep.
I'll speak a bit louder. How's that, Councillor McPhee? Thumbs up or down?
Can you hear Councillor Mr McClendon?
Look, I can hear him, Mr Mayor, but look, I think it's procedural. I'm happy to move the motion if there's no questions.
Absolutely. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor McKay. Seeing as procedural, we'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, section C. Decisions which need action and ratification. Sign and seal report. Mr McClendon, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is
Likewise, Mr Mayor, if there's no questions in relation to it, I'll move the motion.
Any questions? There being, thank you. Moved Councillor McPhee, seconded Councillor Benham. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item C, 21.12, Councillor Assembly's record of attendance and agenda items. Mr McClendon.
again just for noting, Mr Mayor. So
Same again, Mr Mayor. I'll pass the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Moved Councillor McPhee, seconded Councillor Benham. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Right, section D, notices of motion. We don't have any notices of motion.
none listed, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Section E, foreshadowed items. We do not have any foreshadowed items. Section F, urgent items not included in the agenda. Are there any urgent items? There are no urgent items. Section G, to consider and order on councillor reports. So who's going first today? Councillor King, are you ready?
Thank you. Now that I've unmuted. Yeah, nothing major to report. Just an attendance at Swanwell Link monthly board meeting was all that I attended to this month, and nothing to report from that.
Thank you. Councillor McKay. Can you please unmute, please, Councillor McKay?
Well, we attended the National General Assembly in Canberra and quite luckily missed a potential super spreader event, and it was a great assembly, and it was very interesting, and I'll be submitting a report that will be in the minutes. I won't read it out. Thank you. And we had an all-day tour of the Swan Hill area just recently, in addition to our assemblies. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Councillor Benham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Quite a bit, actually, since the last meeting. Some more MAV training. We had the meeting with Anne Webster in Piangle. There was a funding announcement in Robinvale with Mark Jepp to announce funding for the Robinvale Leisure Centre and some for Swan Hill as well. NAIDOC Week, of course. I went to a couple of flag raisings, one at MBAC on the Monday, and helped out with the community-led NAIDOC Art Gallery in Robinvale, which was fantastic. And the local area, the local Aboriginal network need to be congratulated on that gallery, including the curators, David and Luke. It was fantastic, and council supported that by way of space hire at the community centre. And we also had a meeting with Nasiah Mokak, who is driving things on the ground for the census, which is coming up on August 10, which is vitally important for our municipality for everyone to be counted. And there was a REBA meeting in there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benham. Councillor McPhee?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of meetings and they'll be in the minutes. I'll submit my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young?
I've had quite a busy month, considering we've got COVID at the moment, but we're in Progress Association meeting. Had a meeting with Jeff D from TAFE. It was more about, I suppose, my background in TAFE, and it was considering new approaches to delivery of rural industry training. Pinehill meeting with Anne Webster. The Riverside Park meeting with Mark Gepp for the funding for the pathway that was opened. The opening ceremony of NAIDOC Week, the agribusiness meeting, which we had quite a lot of discussion around the new EPA regulations and how it's going to affect farmers, and around the fact that there's not a lot of facilities, which we did get some funding at the moment, but whether it's enough to deal with everything that needs to be disposed of is another question. And then I went to the Inner Wheel luncheon, and that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Young. And myself, pre-COVID lockdown, quite a busy couple of weeks. The National General Assembly, of course, where we met with the Minister for Regional Health Communications and Local Government, the Honourable Mark Colton, the Minister for Water Resources, the Honourable Keith Pitt, the Minister for Energy Emissions and Emissions Reduction, the Honourable Angus Taylor, and Swanwell Rural City Council met with the Immigration Minister, Alex Hawke. We also had an informal meeting with James Sorahan, from the Mineral Councils of Victoria. And as mentioned by other councillors, community meetings at Pinehill with Dr. Anne Webster, the Active Together funding announcement in Robinvale with Mark Gepp, and also at the at Riverside Park, where funding from the Department of Justice has completed a path there connecting the playground with the public facilities there. Also the farewell to from Headspace of Ian Johansson, who was a prime mover in getting that established there. Alderman Lions Club, and various other things, including a rounding off with the NAIDOC Week celebrations. That completes councillor reports. We will now go to in-camera items. Now, can we have a mover before we go on from public, close the meeting? Yes, yeah, Councillor King has moved that we go into camera. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Benham, all those in favour? Thank you, councillors. I'll ask that you remain seated and silent until we disconnect from public transmission.